Welcome to a new time. Welcome to a new era.
This ain't WCW. This ain't Monday Night Raw. This ain't SmackDown. This ain't even WWE.
Feel the wrath of the Pythons. You shall feel the wrath of Hulkamania. This is where the power lies.
And that's the bottom line, because Stone Cold said so.
He put hard times on Dusty Rhodes and his family.
I got a 66 and 2/3 chance of winning, because Kurt Angle knows he can't beat me, and he's not even going to try.
It's time to step into the squared circle and get it done.
Welcome everyone to Legends and Champions for this week. Andy Evans here, coming to you directly from the United Kingdom. Hope everybody is doing well. It's been a week, hasn't it? A lot of things have happened. WrestleMania 7 was last week's show. In that show, we said we were going to be talking about the Immortal Hulk Hogan today. We did have a bit of a change. That has changed. We're now doing a 3-parter on the game Triple H. And it kicks off right here tonight. Looking forward for you listening to this one. Myself and Stefan recorded it in one hit. Three segments, 3 different specials. One talking about the career, one talking about the highs, one talking about the lows, and of course touching on that Hall of Fame induction as well. But I want to hear from you. How did you find it? Do you agree with what we've said? Do you agree with Triple H? Do you think he is one of the best of all time? Do you agree with the Hall of Fame induction? What was the greatest moment in Triple H's career? What was the worst moment in Triple H's career? Not counting Katie Thick. Let us know at the Celebrate Wrestling on Facebook. But I do hope everybody's doing all right. It feels like a weird 2025 so far. It's really weird, isn't it, this year, without getting political. I said that last week. But I hope you're enjoying all of the content that all of our guys are putting out across Celebrate Wrestling, from the wonderful Greek World Order of Mitch and Dimitri taking the world by storm with the alternate commentary table, to Mike again setting the wrestling world on fire with Maguire on Wrestling each and every week, with Joe Aguinaldo appearing on the shows, being the legendary wise man that he is. There is really something for everyone on Celebrate Wrestling, and you can have your voices heard as part of the Facebook group. All you need to do is head over to facebook.com and search for Celebrate Wrestling, ask a couple of little joiny questions, and Mike will let you in, and then you can have your voices heard and be a part of the conversation. All of us, all of the hosting team are active over there, and it's a great community where we talk about and share our passion for professional wrestling. So join it if you haven't already. All right, time for something new. Are you ready for this?
Andy's most excellent video game review.
So he's not on the show, but Joe Aguinaldo will always be on the show. Thanks, Joe, for that new video game review section. And I'm going to kick it off this week talking about Sonic. Now, I'm old. I am very old. I'm in my mid-40s. I'm almost approaching the midlife crisis era. I might have already hit it if you ask my wife. But I picked myself up a new game on the Xbox XS the other week, and it's the Sonic and Shadow Generations. And for anyone who had an Xbox 360 will remember the classic Sonic Generations game, where basically you could play as the old school 2D Sonic and the new 3D Sonic. Well, it's been remastered, redone, and they've now added in a separate Generations game purely for Shadow, and it is phenomenal. I talk about legendary stuff on this show in retro old school content. This took me right back. It's still bloody hard, gotta say, but it is brilliant. It's great fun. It's a great bit of nostalgia. If you haven't checked it out yet, check it out. It's on PS5, PS4, Xbox One, and Xbox XS. I believe it's also on the Switch and the PC. It's Sonic and Shadow Generations. Check it out. It is a cracker. And the reason for doing this video game a little bit is because, we're wrestling fans. We're like video games, right? In a couple of weeks' time, I'm going to be doing a special on the WWE video games, and it's going to be tied into the launch of 2K25. Now, I've got a copy of 2K25 coming. I've got the Bloodline copy pre-ordered. So I will be doing a pre-test. I will be doing a review of the game as part of the video game special right here on Legends. But I want to hear from you. Are you a video gamer of the WWF? What is your favourite World Wrestling Federation video game? Was it SummerSlam? Superstar? Not SummerSlam. Was it Superstars on the arcade? Was it the Super WrestleMania? Was it the WWE SmackDown series when it first came out? Was it 2K20? Yeah. Was it WWF Crush Hour? Was it All Stars? Legends of WrestleMania? What was your favourite wrestling video game? Let me know. Hit me up on the Facebook group. Send me a message. Drop me an email. Don't drop me a tweet because I'm not on Twitter anymore. Drop me a thread. Is that what they call it now? Thread? Drop me one of those. Drop me anything. Just get in contact with me. Let me know what your favourite wrestling video game was, why, how far you got, what was most challenging, and also let me know what you're thinking or looking forward to about WWE 2K25, and I will put your comments in the show in a few weeks' time. But that's it for me. I'm going to stop yabbering on. I'm going to take you to a quick break. When we come back, it will be time to play the game. We will be kicking off this 3-part series on Triple H. See you after this.
Battleground.
That's right. All you have to do is beat the tag team champions at Battleground and you get your jobs back. But isn't it funny, Steph, how there's always a but on
There
these
is.
things?
There's always a but.
But if you lose, then Cody and Dustin, you will never work in the WWE again. And not only that, but your father, the American Dream Dusty Rhodes, will join you on the unemployment line.
Welcome back to Legends and Champions. Andy here, of course, joined by Stephen Bennett. And as I said at the beginning of the show, a slight change in what we were going to talk about, because we were going to talk about the immortal Hulk Hogan and we're going to talk about his career. However, because of things happening in the world, Donald Trump, and the trade war and all this type of thing, I kind of made the decision that actually maybe now wasn't the right time to talk about the immortal one. So instead, we've changed things up. And Stefan and I are going to be talking about the cerebral assassin, the man who has recently been announced as being part of the 2025 WWE class for the Hall of Fame. Stefan, welcome back to the show. The game Triple H, I mean, I gave you the option. I gave you 5 WWE superstars to talk about, wrestling superstars. They included John Cena. They included Cody Rhodes. They were Kevin Owens. There was Dave Bautista, and there was Randy Orton. And there was also the game Triple H. And you kind of snapped my hand off and said, no, let's do the cerebral assassin. So what is it about? Hello, by the way. What is it about Triple H that's kind of made you go, we're doing this one today? I don't know where that voice
well,
came.
hello, Andy.
Hello.
Yeah, hi, and everyone listening. It's great to be back, as always. Yeah, so I said to you, because we did sort of briefly touch on maybe doing John Cena, which I'm happy to talk about his career. He's had a fantastic career, and obviously he's very relevant right now because this is his final year in wrestling before he retires. But I thought with Triple H going into the 2025 Hall of Fame, the fact that so much has happened, and the fact that I am a huge Triple H fan, I just, I let my bias get ahead of take over, and I thought, yeah, Triple H, definitely.
I'm gonna change one word out of what you just said. You're not a Triple H fan, are you? You're a Triple H mark. Yes, you're a mark for the game.
I am a Triple H, yes.
You're a mark for the game. All right. But
I
that's
am.
it makes sense. And you know what? It was one of those things where I was kind of like, do we do Cena? You know, Mike and I had been talking about, who we could do and all that type of thing. And the game Triple H is one that actually has got such a career if you think about where he's been, what he's done, and where he's gone, that quite honestly, I think it's fair to say we're not going to do this in one show. So be prepared, folks, because this could be a bit of a series. And that's fine, because this is something we're going to try, this new format. Let's have a look at the early career of Triple H, though, because as we know, trained by Killer Kowalski, he began his career in WCW as Terror Rising. I mean, not as bad as the Oz gimmick, but still, Terror Rising was not a good name. Moved to the World Wrestling Federation in 1995 as the Greenwich Blue Blood Hunter Hearst Helmsley. And at that point, I think everybody stopped and paid attention to Hunter Hearst Helmsley because he had this undefeated streak. He had some great matches against the likes of Hakushi, and really the look of Paul Levesque was something that we hadn't seen in quite a long time in the World Wrestling Federation. He wasn't a small guy, but he wasn't at that point, he wasn't the biggest guy in the roster.
No, he wasn't. And it's very interesting, isn't it? If you look back, and this I think is one of the reasons why I'm really excited to be doing this. I guess this series on Triple H that we're going to do, because there isn't really anyone out there that's kind of had the early struggles of his career that he's had and ended up on the trajectory to end up running the biggest wrestling promotion in the entire world. So it's very unique that way. So yeah, I mean, he wasn't the smallest, the biggest of guys. Obviously we know, as you said, he trained under Killer Kowalski at his school. I think it was in Maiden. I know in his class, obviously, he had the likes of China, Perry Saturn in there. So, he already started to know a few people at that point. Obviously, China wasn't in pro wrestling at that time. Obviously, she wouldn't be for a few years later. But yeah, he wasn't someone. I mean, obviously, if you look back, I mean, obviously, you can see them anywhere. The kind of like the flare hair that he kind of had as well really didn't suit him. But but yeah, it was a very interesting start for him.
It really was, and he's been classed by various publications like Men's Journal and News.com in Australia as one of the greatest professional wrestlers of all time, and majority of that is because actually throughout his career he spent more time as a heel than what he did as a face. And I remember, I never watched WCW back when Terror Rising was on there because, as you know, Stefan, here in the UK we didn't really get that much WCW, and especially in the early time, this 1994 1995 reign, we didn't really see much of him. But what I do remember is a match at Starrcade against Alex Wright. And it was a brief feud. It ended up with Wright pinning him. He then teamed with Steven Regal, Lord Steven Regal, as we all know now as William Regal. And they kind of played off this blue blood character. They became close friends. And actually, that kind of put Regal in a position that he's in now as the sort of right-hand man. But what was really intriguing, if you go back to 1994, his finishing move that he had in the WCW was the pedigree. Just not called the pedigree. That's followed him. And now, Randy Orton and various different superstars throughout his career. He is really a trailblazer. And for someone who, came out with the blonde hair, like you said, the flare hair, I think if you looked at the terrorizing character, you would kind of go, he's not going to make it in professional wrestling. Was it Vince? Was it
No.
Vince McMahon that kind of made him what he was in professional wrestling?
See, that's interesting. I mean, I go back to what you said about obviously we didn't have a lot of access to WCW back then. I mean, I used to watch it all the time. I used to have it taped in the early hours of the morning. It would be on the ITV. For us, those who are not in the UK, ITV is a channel, and they used to have like a late night program where after midnight they would show various different programs and that, and one of them was always WCW. And also, what I used to do, same with back in the WWF days, I used to frequently collect the WCW and WWF magazines as well. I used to collect those quite frequently, so I knew a bit about terrorizing. And I remember bits and pieces of Winnie Team Regal. I don't remember a whole lot. I didn't know too much back then. Obviously, growing up and having all the access to go back and watch the earlier stuff, obviously I've done that. So I'm now more, knowledgeable about what he did in that stage of his career. I think it's interesting, though, whether it was Vince. I mean, Vince obviously saw something in him. Obviously, when he came in as like the Connecticut, yeah, well, we'll get to that. As the Connecticut Blue Blood, it was a very similar gimmick. The pedigree is still one of my favorite finishers of all time. You know, I know Seth Rollins uses it now and again. Well, in most of his big matches, he uses it at some point. Yeah, I mean, I think his move to the WWE was at the right time where those sort of gimmicks were quite frequent, regular. Obviously, after he had, featured in, his like matches, I know he was against the likes of Bob Holly and he'd have his squash matches on, like the Wrestling Superstars type shows and things like that. Vince obviously saw something in him, but I think it was when, they put him in feuds against people like, I know he had one against Henry Godwin, which, is still a bit of a strange feud, but more so I think his stock went up when he was in that feud with Goldust. When he feuded with the likes of Goldust and Mankind, I think that's when it really started to catapult him.
I agree with you totally, but I also think that actually Hunter was hurt quite a lot by his association with Shawn Michaels, Kevin Nash, and Sean Waltman.
Yeah.
They were the clique, and actually it was 1997 that he won the King of the Ring tournament. He was meant to have won it the year earlier. We had the Madison Square Garden curtain call incident where Nash and Waltman, Nash and Hall, were leaving to go to WCW. Michaels and Paul Levesque broke character. They came out. It's been well documented, and he was punished. But I think, actually, if you look at what that did to Paul Levesque, he was kind of treading mid-card up until then. Yes, he was getting the rub by Shawn Michaels. Yes, he was getting the rub by Kevin Nash. But this kind of made him known. This got people talking about this Hunter Hearst Helmsley character. That King of the Ring win, which at the time always kind of elevated the superstars that won that to the WWF Championship, maybe not winning the title, but definitely in the main event. You look at Mabel as a prime example. Back in 1995, he went on to SummerSlam and faced Big Daddy Cool for the World Championship at SummerSlam 95. With Michaels out, with Nash gone, with Hall gone, he had to develop and change this persona. And that's when we started seeing what I think is the real Paul Levesque, the game. He got rid of the Hunter Hearst Helmsley character. It became Triple H. He became the game. He became the cerebral assassin. You could see this mind that he had for the business coming out. You could see he was a student of the game. You could see he emulated the likes of the Nature Boy Ric Flair. You could see that he emulated the likes of Double A Arn Anderson just by some of the moves. And actually, if you think back to 1998, 1999, the Attitude Era, with the superstars that were there, The Rock, Stone Cold, The Undertaker, the Olympic gold medalist Kurt Angle, Chris Benoit, Shawn Michaels, he actually went above and beyond the grain of the superstars that were there. He really embraced this controversy, this ability to build on the click, and to kind of go out there and say, do you know what? Sod everybody. I'm going to do what I want to do.
Yeah, I mean, pardon the pun, but you really see that evolution of his career in the WWE. I mean, obviously, you touched on he was, the curtain call incident. He was obviously meant to win King of the Ring in '96, not '97. But if you think about it, and this is why I go, I guess everything happens for a reason. Because if he had won it in '96, we may never have had Austin 316, and Austin may never have ended up in the career he may have had. I do wonder if Shawn still sort of gave him the rub to Vince after Nash and Hall left. Maybe that still had some sort of favoritism, and he took the flack for what happened. He was punished because obviously he wasn't Vince's guy at the time. Shawn was, so he wasn't going to really punish Shawn to any real huge extent. And the fact that I think he just kind of took it and got on with it and didn't bury his head in the sand and complain, I think that's something an attitude that I think Vince loves from a lot of his workers is, if they want to ridicule you or get you to do something silly or they want to bury you, and you just get on with it and you take it and you crack on and just do it to the best of your ability, I think that works big favors with someone like Vince McMahon at that time. But it's interesting as well, because before DX first formed in '97, you look at where he won his first Intercontinental title against Mark Mero. He had Mr. Perfect as his manager at that time. He ended up having Mr. Hughes as his bodyguard. So he, the fact that he was having these guys put with them, those were early signs of, I think, Vince kind of saying, look, show me what you've got. I'm going to do these things for you. We're going to book you this way. I'm going to see what you can do. And I think because of the relationship that Shawn and Triple H had, and obviously, the NWA we know had been formed and were doing, starting to really, really gain momentum in WCW. I think that Vince probably saw that degenerate side of Triple H and Shawn maybe a little bit behind the scenes and went, actually, do you know what? I think we may have something here.
I think you're right to a degree. I think that actually, the DX stable that they did was the nice comparison to the NWO, and actually maybe in some respects more relevant than the NWO, because it was original, it was unique, it wasn't something that had been ripped off from Japan, and Bischoff admits that he saw the idea in Japan, and that was the NWO. I think that, there were moments when him and Shawn were together that you really did see a different side of Paul Levesque. The most notable one is the invasion of WCW with the Road Dogg, Jesse James, and Badass Billy Gunn in 1998, once Shawn had gone. And as much as I love, and I am the biggest fan of the Heartbreak Kid, back in the day, for me, the best thing that ever happened to Paul Levesque was Shawn Michaels was leaving.
Because he stepped out of his shadow at that point. He was, he picked the ball up and he ran, which is great credit to him. But what I do like, even though when DX were heels, when you saw, because I still love to this day when Shawn, Chyna, Rick Rude and Triple H had that rivalry with Commissioner Sergeant Slaughter at the time, and they were acting like kids, like little renegade kids. And it was the first time that you saw, I think it allowed Triple H to show other dimensions of his character and personality, what he was capable of doing. He can be a funny guy as well as, be a bully and all that, and I think that helped a great deal.
I think the only thing I would argue with you on that is the comment of when DX were heels. I think they were always tried to be booked as heels, but I never think they were. I think they were always a face. The crowd loved DX, even if there was this smattering of of
Oh,
Boo going,
absolutely.
going through. You go back to certain matches, right? You go back to Bad Blood when it was The Undertaker versus Shawn Michaels for the title. You go back to SummerSlam '97 Heart and Soul when HBK cost The Undertaker the championship. Triple H was always in that background. You go to One Night Only in September of '97 in Birmingham when it was the Bulldog versus the Heartbreak Kid. Who was it ringside? It was the Game, Triple H. He was always there. But in 1998, when Michaels got injured at WrestleMania 14, there was no safety net for him. And to come out on that Monday Night Raw following WrestleMania, that Raw after Mania, which is that iconic moment, which okay, has gone down in quality over the last few years. Yeah, we'll give it that. But back in '98, it was the pinnacle, right? The night after WrestleMania, you come out. For him to come out to bring Six, Sean Waltman, back out, for the Road Dogg and for Billy Gunn to join DX, for him to say, screw everybody, we're doing it my way and we're going on, and to take DX to new heights that he had never reached before, and in fairness, would never reach again. Because even when he realigned with Shawn Michaels back in, 2001, 2002, it was never the same. DX was never the same. And it was really when Hunter was running it with China that it scaled these new heights.
Yeah, I mean, I've always enjoyed that promo that he delivered on that Monday Night Raw because of the things he said. Obviously, it was kind of I think he was putting a lot of blame on Shawn Michaels in that as well. And and he's saying, I'm taking care of business that should have been taken care of from the start. Hinting as if to say, we should have grown DX like a lot earlier. It shouldn't have just been us. We didn't kind of, we just kind of kept it at this. And I think there was some element of him maybe blaming Shawn as if to say, do you know what, you held DX back from growing into something what it should have been from the start. And, and I thought the recruitment of who he brought in was perfect. And obviously the popularity grew from there. And I think really when they got into that rivalry against the Nation, I mean, we spoke about before about the Bret Hart and Shawn Michaels parallel careers. This is where Triple H and The Rock's careers start to become parallel. Both leaders of their own stables at the time, both extremely popular with the crowd, and we got to see Triple H having fun, and we got to you're watching Triple H and you're thinking, do you know what? This guy is absolutely hilarious. Like, I knew he could be funny, but, he's a real character. And that's where I started to warm to Triple H more and started to take more notice of him, was when he took over at DX and that rivalry against the Nation kind of started. So, yeah, it was. And, yeah, and obviously I know, because obviously he and Shawn Michaels have aligned on and off many, many times, even though I quite enjoyed to an extent the reunion they did in sort of 2006, when they were against like the Spirit Squad and all that. Like, there were some risque moments during that time, it wasn't the same as such, but I think they were doing it because I think, especially as far as Shawn was concerned, his career definitely winding down at that point. And I thought, you know what? I think Dave thought, you know what the hell? I think we could have one real good last run here. And to be fair, they did all right.
Absolutely. I mean, just looking at the accolades that Hunter's got in his career, he is the second Grand Slam champion in history. He is the seventh Triple Crown champion. He's won the Royal Rumble twice, 2002, 2016, the 1997 King of the Ring, two-time World Wrestling Federation Tag Team Champion, one-time WWE Tag Team Champion with Shawn Michaels. He has been the European Championship on 2 occasions, the Intercontinental Champion 5 times, the World Heavyweight Champion 5 times, the WWE Champion 9 times. He has been ranked number 7 out of 20 of the greatest WWE wrestlers of all time by Sports Illustrated. He's been ranked number 1 in the PWI 500 in both 2000 and 2009. He's been known as one of the most loved wrestlers of the year and one of the most hated wrestlers of the year in 2003, 2013, 2014. He was deemed the wrestler of the decade between 2000 and 2009 by PWI. He had feud of the year not once, but 4 times with Kurt Angle, Chris Benoit, Randy Orton, Daniel Bryan. He had match of the year in 2004 at WrestleMania 20 with Shawn Michaels and Chris Benoit. He had match of the year in 2012 against The Undertaker in Hell in a Cell at Mania 28. I mean, he won the Wrestler of the Decade. He also won the most hated Wrestler of the Decade in 2000 and 2009. He won the most hated Wrestler of the Year 2003 to 2005, 2013, 2014. I mean, just that summary of his accolades pales in comparison to some of the other people, right?
Well, that's why he needs to be in that Hall of Fame and deserves to be. It's incredible, and that's one of the things as well that's always made me a Triple H fan, is because he is one of the handful of stars that can be the best face there is, but be the best heel there is. Like the fact that he can go from, the personality of where he can make the crowd laugh and he can joke about and have fun, to being the most sadistic, vicious, aggressive superstar that's done some seriously messed up things, is incredible.
Okay, so what is he best at? Because, you can turn around and you can say he can be one of the best faces, he can be one of the best heels. What is Triple H best at? Because we all know that a good worker is good at both, but you exemplify one of those areas. So which one is it for the game?
Oh, 100%. I mean, even though I stick by that statement I just made, 100% he is probably one of, if not the best heel WWE have ever had.
So
because
just WWE, or would you stretch that out? Because I would say there's an argument there to say he's one of the best heels in wrestling history.
Well, the fact that we've only really got not much of a memorable run in WCW really to go with. I mean, his entire real successful career has been in WWE. I mean, if you want to include anyone in any promotion, then yeah, I'm still putting him right up there. If you were including people from other promotions, then I'm still putting him right up there.
I totally get what you're saying, and I agree with you. Yeah. You think of Hunter Hearst Helmsley, you think of the World Wrestling Federation, but I think if you were putting, this PWI list, if we were, that far up there and we were looking at everything, you've either got to turn around and say that he is in the top 3 top heels in professional wrestling, and I would only put him under the likes of the Nature Boy Ric Flair, really, because he is that good. He is one of those workers. He's one of those performers that, more than anything, is a fan of the business. He has got a love of the industry, and you can see that. You can see that in how he studied his character. You can see that in how he portrayed himself. You could see that in how he used to cut a promo, kind of playing off the Ric Flair style, especially when it was Evolution. You could see that now in how he books. The booking of WWE is very, to a degree, very old school in its mentality. You get more time in a match, you get more time to tell a story, you get more time to build a character. I mean, just look at, it's modern day, but just look at Cody Rhodes, Roman Reigns. That was a 2-year storyline to finish the story. The Bloodline has been 2.5 years before it came to an end. When was the last time you saw that in professional wrestling? And part of that is down to the creative genius of Paul Levesque.
That's what I was going to say, is because that's the thing, because we used to be, growing up like the 80s and the early 90s, rivalries used to spread out, 6 months to a year to sometimes even 2 years. And I think that from, you know, under Vince, it started to get to a point where rivalries and title changes were happening so frequent that I think a lot of fans disdain with the whole, titles don't seem prestigious anymore because they're changing hands so quickly, so frequently. Rivalries don't really last anymore, and and that was a period where I was, I still watched it because I still loved wrestling, but I wasn't enjoying the product. And I think when a lot of people used to guess about what would happen to the company when Vince would finally retire, or if Vince would pass away. Obviously, we didn't foresee that he would sell the company to, a couple like TKO, and it would end up being the way it is. Everyone automatically assumed that Shane and Stephanie would start running the place. Stephanie, she hangs around the place. She's not even employed by the company anymore. Shane's nowhere to be seen. And Triple H, when people used to say, oh, well, what about if Triple H runs it, with Stephanie and that? And people were like, can't trust Triple H. A lot of people had a lot of hate for Triple H for some reason, that no, he would just bury everyone. He won't do it. And look what he's doing. He's put WWE in the best position it's been in years. And it's because he cares. He loves wrestling. And first and foremost, he gets it. He's a wrestling fan. He's the one that advocates for indie stars and, giving, we look at the rosters now, and you look at how many people you and I have seen on the indies in England, or people that I know personally that I've worked with that are working in WWE and things like that. And back in those days, like with Vince and all that, that wouldn't happen very often, if hardly at all.
I mean, we're making him out to be this god, right? We're making him out to be the greatest thing that's ever happened in professional wrestling. But, he has had his critics, like you said. He has had people turn around and say that actually, he hasn't been all that good. And we know that there's been, issues with the likes of The Rock, Dwayne Johnson, which made the arrival in TKO as the head of the table, really, even more controversial. But I think you take that aside and you look at what he achieved, that list that we've just run through, and he is arguably the greatest professional wrestler of all time. Everybody turns around and says it's John Cena. I don't believe that.
No. No.
Cena might have 16 world titles to his name out of this time. Triple H has got 15. 14.
I said to you earlier, I've never been a Cena fan. I mean, I was more of a fan of Cena during his Doctor of Thugonomics time because I thought it worked and it was really good for what it was. For me, I've never enjoyed Cena's style of wrestling. For me, people talk, oh, wrestling's fake and all that lot. The way Cena wrestles looks fake, because the way he throws punches, he pulls off certain moves, they look really strange. They don't look like a properly trained wrestler would do it. I just, if you compare the way he works in the ring to most, to me, it just don't seem right. And I've just never been a fan of the way he's worked. I've enjoyed some of his work in terms of rivalries like he had with Edge, for example. I mean, I absolutely love his rivalry with Edge. That's one of my favorite rivalries of all time. I don't hate Cena or really dislike him. I've just never bought into the Cena fandom and obsession that WWE had for all those years.
It's interesting, though, when you think about it, because, you've kind of touched on an interesting point there about the comedic aspect of John Cena. One of the things that a lot of people turn around and say is that Hunter doesn't have a sense of humor. We've seen it in DX, right? We've seen the scripted humor. But there's that video going around from a match that he did with Shawn Michaels against Ric Flair, where, he literally was going for the pinfall and was just playing the I'm not going down, and Shawn playing it off. Yep. You can't fake that, right? You can't fake it at all. And we're getting to the end of part 1 of this Triple H series, and we haven't even touched on things like Evolution, which were there. So as we begin to wind down episode 1 of this Triple H story, what is the one thing you would like listeners to take away from this as we move into part 2 of this Triple H series?
I just say, if you look at the big picture of the career he's had, the trajectory, everything he's done, forget the whole fact that, you know, a lot of people are biased and think that he, you know, he's in his position just because, you know, he married the boss's daughter and all that. Take that aside, because I feel that's a bit of a cop-out comment that people have. I think he's earned his status as one of the greatest. I think if you look back, the way, you know, he's worked through injuries and health issues, and if you look at, you know, what he has done for the landscape of the company since he's retired, I think there needs to be a greater appreciation and respect on his name than, you know, than I think a lot of people have, because he is a true trailblazer. You know, he's been more influential and changing the dynamics and the scenery of, you know, a company which, although was making billions, you know, it was stale for many years. It was faltering and stale for many, many years. He's kind of given it a rebirth. And, you know, as an actual wrestling fan who knows what he's doing, and, you know, yeah, he might not always get it right, but who does? So yeah, I think that's what people need to take away is, you know, respect the performer that he was, respect the, you know, the mind and the love he has for the business.
I mean, it's again, you know, it's intriguing hearing some of these things, and we are really coming to the end of this first part. But, you know, I'm just sat there thinking about, you know, I've got a show plan in front of me, and we haven't even got to talk about Evolution. We haven't talked about Stephanie, but everything you've said there is kind of a nutshell, right? He is, without a shadow of a doubt, the true epitome of this hybrid. And when I say hybrid, what I mean is he is the wrestling fan who's doing the job we all want. Right, let's be frank. We would all love to sit there and book the WWE on a daily basis. Some of us do if you play games like TEW and you know, PWR. But he is also one of the most tactile student of the game. You know, I think you can see that. You can see that in the way his mind works. You can see that in how he's developed this new generation of talent in NXT, and how he's developed this new generation of talent from the PC, and how he created NXT to really be the number one brand in professional wrestling. But what I will say is this first part of this series has been this shining light, you know, Triple H being the God, being the Messiah. He has had some very bad moments in the squared circle. And part 2 of this coming up next week, we're going to be looking at some of those moments, including Katie Vick. And the one moment that I think kind of hurt Triple H to a degree, and that was being awarded the World Heavyweight Championship by Eric Bischoff in 2002. You know, that didn't do him any favors. That's next week, talking about some of the lows of Triple H. Stefan, with just a couple of minutes left in this segment, what is the biggest low that you want to touch on next week on this show?
I think the biggest low is probably going to be the heart condition that led to him retiring. I know he was wrestling scarce, but I feel that people like that should be able to go out on their own terms, and unfortunately he wasn't able to do that, which is unfortunate. And obviously having a similar heart condition to what he had is quite scary, so I could kind of relate in some ways to that. But I just think I think for me that's the lowest, is having to walk away when it's not on your terms.
Triple H Part 1. We'll be back next week.
This has been Legends and Champions with Andy Evans. Thank you for listening.